The year is 1908. The summer sun glints off the waters of the Baltic. Two of the world's most powerful monarchs, King Edward VII of Great Britain and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, meet amidst naval pageantry at Revel, modern-day Tallinn. Publicly, it's a spectacle of Anglo-Russian rapprochement, a cementing of the previous year's entente, a carefully choreographed display of imperial amity designed to send a message across Europe, particularly to Berlin. Smiles are exchanged, toasts are made, warships fire salutes. The world sees unity, a strengthening alliance. But beneath this gilded surface, in the shadowy corridors of diplomacy and within the very private chambers of the royal visit, another, far more sensitive narrative was unfolding. A narrative known to only a select few at the time, one that, if widely publicized, could have thrown a chill over the carefully cultivated warmth. For King Edward VI, the consummate diplomat, the uncle of Europe, was not merely there for naval reviews and state dinners. He had another agenda, a discreet and potentially explosive one. During this landmark visit to Russia, King Edward VI, a monarch who understood the shifting tides of power and the burgeoning calls for reform across the continent, arranged a clandestine meeting. Not with high-ranking ministers of the Tsar's government, nor with grand dukes or courtiers. No, the King of Great Britain, on Russian soil, secretly met with a group of liberal Russian politicians, members of the Duma, the nascent, often beleaguered, Russian parliament. Men who advocated for constitutional monarchy, for greater freedoms, for a very different Russia than the autocracy ruled by his nephew, Nicholas. Imagine the audacity, the sheer political risk. Edward was a guest of the Tsar, a ruler notoriously suspicious of any challenge to his absolute authority. To meet with figures considered by Nicholas to be, at best, troublesome meddlers, and at worst, dangerous radicals, was an act of extraordinary boldness, bordering on diplomatic incendiarism. This wasn't an accidental encounter. It was a deliberate, carefully arranged meeting, shrouded in as much secrecy as possible within the confines of a royal visit. Why would Edward take such a gamble? He was a pragmatist. He saw the internal pressures building within Russia. Perhaps he believed that engaging with these liberal elements was crucial for understanding the true political landscape, for gauging the stability of his new ally. Perhaps, with his more liberal British sensibilities, he felt a degree of sympathy for their cause, a belief that gradual reform could prevent a more violent upheaval. Or perhaps it was a subtle power play, a demonstration of British influence, a quiet message that England was attuned to, forces beyond the Tsar's immediate circle. The meeting itself would have been electric with tension. The liberal politicians, likely a mixture of cadets and octobrists, would have seen in Edward a potential, powerful sympathizer, a representative of a constitutional monarchy they aspired to emulate. They would have poured out their hopes, their frustrations, their visions for Russia's future. And Edward, the seasoned listener, would have absorbed it all, offering perhaps guarded encouragement, or simply the invaluable currency of being heard by one of the world's most influential men. The true suspense, however, lies not just in the meeting itself, but in the aftermath. Secrets, especially in the claustrophobic world of royal courts and secret police, have a way of seeping out. And this one did. Tsar Nicholas VI eventually learned of his uncle's clandestine parley. The revelation, when it came, was met with more than just surprise. It ignited a deep displeasure, a festering resentment in the already insecure Tsar. It confirmed his deepest suspicions about the untrustworthiness of reformers and the foreign influences that might embolden them. It was a personal slight, an act that undermined his authority in his own domain. While the Anglo-Russian Entente officially remained intact, this secret meeting and Nicholas's subsequent discovery undoubtedly cast a shadow. It introduced a note of personal distrust between the two monarchs, a subtle crack in the facade of their alliance. How could Nicholas fully trust an uncle who went behind his back to consult with men he viewed as a threat to his throne? The incident reveals the complex tightrope Edward VI often walked. He was a family man, connected by blood to nearly every throne in Europe. He was also a king, responsible for the interests of the British Empire. Sometimes these roles clashed. His attempt to understand, perhaps even subtly influence, the internal dynamics of Russia was a high-stakes diplomatic maneuver conducted under the guise of a family visit. This was not a public scandal that derailed treaties. It was a quieter affair, a matter of personal animosity and suspicion that simmered beneath the surface. But in the delicate ecosystem of pre-war European diplomacy, where personal relationships between monarchs still held considerable sway, such incidents mattered. They added to the undercurrents of mistrust, the unspoken grievances that would contribute to the catastrophic breakdown just a few years later. The Reval meeting of 1908 is remembered for its public display of unity. But the real drama, the true insight into the era's perilous politics, lies in the king's secret conversation, a bold move that risked much and left behind a residue of royal displeasure that history has often overlooked. A whisper of liberal reform carried on English breath into the heart of Tsarist Russia, and the Tsar, when he heard it, was not pleased.